USCHO.com. This is the USCHO Game of the Week podcast from US College Hockey Online at USCHO.com. An in-depth look at this week's top college hockey matchup and a preview of the other big games.
Welcome to the USCHO Game of the Week podcast for Thursday, November 11th, 2021. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. One of the great matchups of the weekend is our Game of the Week as number 11 Omaha travels to number 1 ranked St. Cloud State.
And just now for the Game of the Week podcast, the head coach at St. Cloud State, that's Brett Larson. Brett, nice start to this season. It almost a carryover from the end of last season where your team made a run to the national title game. What do you like about the start of this year?
Well, we're relying heavily on special teams right now, which has been a positive for us. So I think it's a benefit of having everybody back, that we're able to get a lot of guys in familiar positions. And that's been a real bright spot for us. And goaltending's been good as well. We've really pushed David this year. He's pushed himself. So anytime you can get some good goaltending and have special teams run in the right direction, at least that's a good start.
I'm glad you started with special teams because that was something I wanted to touch on. What is the success for you guys? Is it just getting the repetitions, having some continuity in terms of, personnel on the power play that can, really propel a good power play to be successful? Yeah,
it is. I think the biggest part is, and let's be honest, you look at everybody's power play, they're running one of 3 power plays, right? You're running this 2-3 spread, you're running the 1-3-1 or an overload. Everyone's running basically the same things. I think what it is your players knowing each other, understanding their instincts and reading off each other and having them in the right spots and getting some continuity that way. So I think we're very fortunate to get our power plays back from last year. That way we felt like we could at least start with a structure and build from there. So it's definitely been a benefit having the guys back.
Go into a couple of specific players, if you don't mind. And we'll start with the guy who's leading your team in scoring right now, Kevin Fitzgerald, 5 goals, 13 points in 10 games. That's a pretty impressive start for any player.
Yeah, you know what, for me, it's a kind of a lesson, hopefully, for the rest of the guys. Kevin's in his 5th year now, a little bit older, a little bit wiser. And to me, he's just having fun. He's working hard. He's loving playing the game. Maybe just that little extra maturity of knowing when to kind of be able to, get over a mistake quicker and just focus on playing. But he just seems like he's just instinctually playing hard, playing for his teammates and enjoying the game and having fun. And it's the best I've seen him play since he's been here.
Another guy who's near the top of the sheet, Easton Brodzinski, 7 points, 4 goals in 10 games. Every time I think of him, I think back to that leg injury he sustained out in Albany at the NCAA regionals last year. What has been his battle to come back and be not just be in the lineup, but be having impact?
Well, you know what? He's done a good job of getting to where he is right now. He's still not at 100% really. I mean, he's healthy. The leg is strong and whatnot, but some of that quick twitch stuff, some of those things are still not quite there. And he's really having to learn how to play smarter. And he's always been good around the net with a good heavy stick, great at tipping rebounds, all those things. And that's where he's been big for us. But I think week to week, I can see that he's getting a little bit quicker. He's getting a little bit more comfortable, being able to move and support the play a little bit better. I'm hoping that, in all honesty, this first half gets that rust out, gets him back to where he was, and we can have a full, Easton Brodzinski at full strength second half of the year.
You kind of touched on him a little bit. David Renick, the goaltender, a veteran, and it's nice to have that veteran leadership. I know between the pipes, coaches talk about their goaltender being everything, more than probably any hockey. What has it been like for him, watching him continue to get better and better?
Well, it's been fun because David came back this year because he had something to prove. He had a good career here, but I know he wanted more than that. He had some highs and lows in his games throughout his career here, and he wanted to prove that he was a better goalie than he'd been showing. And I've just seen a really motivated kid that's really pushing himself hard. Compete level has been raised in practice. His extra workload, things he's doing extra on his own. I just see a highly motivated kid that's really pushing himself and not satisfied with where he was, but has this desire to keep getting better and prove that he can be the goalie that a lot of people thought he could be.
I'd like to take you back to the Frozen Four a little bit and its impact on how the team is oriented this year. We saw a UMass team that 2 years before against Minnesota Duluth kind of struggled in the national championship game and came back with a lot of confidence. The Huskies got as far as your program has ever gotten to the national championship game and now have an opportunity to work to get back there. How's the hunger for that with the team, and how is the focus on that compared to maybe short-term focuses?
Yeah, there is a hunger, a big-time hunger. But I got to be honest with you, what we've really tried to do is keep the focus short-term because we know that, especially in this league, every weekend's a playoff series. We have to keep getting better. Nothing's just going to happen because we're all back. We've tried to keep it very short-term, narrow focus, focusing on the opponent of the weekend. Certainly trying not to look at polls or weekly awards or anything like that, but keep everything narrow, internal focus on us pushing each other to get better. Just because UMass did it doesn't mean we're going to be able to do it just by showing up. We need to put in the work. We need to realize how hard we worked to get there last year, how hard the guys battled through adversity, all those things. And it's the same mentality this year. We're not going to get there because of past history. We're going to get there because we earn it and work for it. And that's kind of the day-to-day focus.
You mentioned kind of like a playoff series every weekend. Last weekend, your opponent this weekend, Omaha, split with Miami, a team that's kind of on the rise. And you had a game that went to overtime on Friday night with Colorado College. So top to bottom, how's the league looking this year?
Same as every year. You kind of wish you had a weekend off once in a while where you knew you had 6 points. It doesn't happen in this league. Colorado College with their new rink and a team that's playing really hard right now and was a big test for us. And UNO will be no different. I mean, they're 8-2 right now. They're a team that's very well coached. They play very structured. They compete hard. They get pucks in the dirty areas. Every week presents a new challenge in this league. But I think, and I think a lot of people believe that's why this league's been so successful in the postseason. This league, iron sharpens iron, and you're playing a heck of a team every night. And I think that forces you to have to raise your game throughout the year. If you get stagnant, if you get complacent, you're not going to win in this league. And I think this league keeps pushing us to get better. So, I don't see that change.
How happy have you been, whether it's on the road in a sellout crowd at a brand new Ed Robson Arena or back home with people in the stands, to have that energy compared to all those days in the bubble last year?
It's so much fun, and you can see it on the players' faces. And the other thing is sometimes in the dog days of the season, on that Tuesday practice when the weekend still seems a ways away and you're working, and you want to remind the guys of how thankful we are right now to be doing this and to be playing in front of fans. I think our first, our opener here at St. Cloud was awesome. The building was just shaking. And then we go into Mankato where there wasn't an empty seat in that place, playing 1 and 2 in the country. And it's a privilege to be able to play this game at this level, and especially in front of the, college hockey fans are the best fans in sports, and you can't replace the energy that they bring. It's been awesome.
This weekend series, Nebraska, Omaha, they'll come in 2 games. You both have the same record. They've had a pretty good juggernaut of opponents, but I look at one team as number 1 in the country, one is number 9. It doesn't feel like maybe the general public and maybe even the voters have had the respect for Omaha at this point. Is that something that you've had to maybe emphasize, that there has to be a lot of respect for that this weekend?
Absolutely. And our guys know it. They've got almost their whole team back from last year too. And I'll tell you, there was nobody harder to play against than them. So there is already a very strong mutual respect between these two programs. There's no doubt about that. And the polls, you guys both know this. Let's face it, in college hockey, there are no easy wins. And the difference between 20 probably isn't that much different. Very, very small difference between those teams. So this is two top 10 teams going toe to toe and head to head. And I think it's going to be a battle.
What do they do well? What is your biggest challenge when you're facing an Omaha team?
They get the pucks to the net, and whether it's off the rush, whether it's in the zone, whether it's from below the goal line, you better be ready to defend your net front, because they're taking it there and they're going to be relentless taking pucks there. They're very good at it. They're committed to their system. They play the right way. But if you're not willing to get dirty and defend some of the areas against them, you're going to be in trouble.
Well, it is 2 games that are set up between these top 10 teams. Omaha traveling to St. Cloud State this weekend. It should be good. This is good hockey. If you have a chance to watch this one somewhere, get out to Herb Brooks Hockey Center. This has a lot of good things written all over it, but appreciate you taking the time to join us. And we're looking forward to watching this game from afar.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
That's St. Cloud head coach Brett Larson. More of the Game of the Week podcast coming up.
This is the USCHO Game of the Week podcast from US College Hockey Online.
Welcome back to the Game of the Week podcast. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. A big matchup this weekend as Omaha travels into St. Cloud State. St. Cloud got 5 of 6 points against Colorado College with just that 1 point of blemish. A split at Miami for Omaha last weekend. Both teams are going to want to get the preponderance of points out of this.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize until I took a good look at St. Cloud's schedule how much of a juggernaut they're about to go through here. And you pull 4 wins out of the next 6 games. If you're St. Cloud, you feel great about yourself. You don't think of the number 1 team in the country saying, "Hey, we can lose a couple out of our next 6 and we'll be in great position." But I really think that is where it is. And for Omaha, I mean, this is a team that we keep trying to figure out exactly where they are. I think they're a really good hockey team and better than people are giving them credit for right now. Maybe, you lose a game to Miami and suddenly people are sitting there saying, maybe they're not that good. Maybe we overrated them. But I think this is a top 10 team. This is a team that, easily could be in a battle for, top 2, top 3 in the NCHC. And I don't know that everybody had that on their radar screen when the season began.
Another matchup pits 2 teams that are going in different directions out of last weekend. Number 2, Michigan handled Michigan State pretty well last weekend with sweeps home and away against Sparty. Ohio State hosted Penn State and blanked the number 19 Nittany Lions, and Ohio State moved to number 18 in the poll on the strength of that. Boy, if you're in Penn State, even though you're at home, you really got to be looking out for a really tough weekend against a Michigan team that seems to like to fly. But on the other hand, so does Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing that's going through Penn State's mind right now is that if you don't have success this weekend, you're starting something that's negative. You're starting a bad streak, and you don't want to get into that. That's one of those dangerous, stretches of schedules. You knew you had a really tough weekend coming up with Michigan. So to pull nothing, kind of a lost weekend when you were playing Ohio State the week prior, a series that, if you probably looked at that on paper before the season began, you say, okay, this is, 6 points that Penn State should have, maybe 5, but, you definitely don't want to come away with a 0. So that's a threat for them. In Michigan, they're just trying to keep rolling. And this is a very good hockey team that can take nights off. And I think that is one of the dangers when you have some young, talented players that you don't always get that same effort night in, night out. I think that's what any, coach that is loaded with talent will always go through that challenge of, can you take nights off? The answer is always no.
Well, I'm going to hop over to another game with a similar scenario. There is a lot at stake besides 6 points this weekend as number 14 Denver hosts number 8 Western Michigan. Denver was swept at North Dakota last weekend. I think the Pioneers have got to watch out here because they don't want to do what they did last year, which was dig themselves an early hole that they couldn't completely climb back out of.
You nailed that right on the head, because last season, that was where Denver ended up. When they left the pod, they knew that they were behind the 8 ball. And that's, they had a great run down the stretch, got themselves into, I believe it was the NCHC semifinals, but then ultimately couldn't, dig themselves back to earn the respect for an at-large bid by the league. So I think that they know they're in a tough part of their schedule. North Dakota, that was not going to be an easy series no matter what, but now you face Western, a team that is on the up and up. This is a better Western team than most people, were probably expecting before this began. I think that, you had an idea that they were, on on an upslope and playing better hockey over the last year and a half. But this is a good Western team. This might be, I feel like a broken record when I say, boy, this could be a top 3 team in the NCHC. Well, I feel like there's 6 teams that could be a top 3 team in the NCHC right now. And that's one of the big battles that goes on in that conference, is how good the competition is. You heard Brett Larson talk about night in, night out. There's just no nights off.
And when you think about the postseason in that league, you're going to have number 4 playing number 5. Do you want to be the team playing number 5 in the first round of the playoffs?
You don't. If you're at home, you think you've done something great. You've gotten home ice, but you're in 4th place and you're playing a really good team. Even 3-6 is going to be a tough one. And the way that the season has begun, you can't even say that, you can't just default and say that Colorado College and Miami are the bottom of this league. They're giving teams fits every single night. We mentioned CC almost taking out St. Cloud last week. You get a Miami team that can find a way to split with Omaha. That's pretty impressive. And, that will make the postseason in the NCHC even more interesting.
Ohio State, number 18 in this week's poll, is at number 6 Minnesota in Big Ten action after Friday night's 4-3 overtime loss to Wisconsin. Bob Motzko said his team made too many mistakes and hand-delivered the game to Wisconsin. Brock Caulfield got the tying goal and then the overtime winner. Meanwhile, Ohio State's got to be feeling pretty good after 5-2 and 4-1 victories over visiting Penn State.
Yeah, I think Minnesota they search for consistency, and I feel like that you can be a broken record with them. They say this is something we say about them every year. They're a good team. When are they going to, consistently start going on big, long stretches? You're waiting for that with them, and they're in a tough league, and everybody's in a tough league now. There's just, as we were saying off the air, there's not a lot of easy games. But Ohio State coming in the role, and how much confidence can Steve Rollick's team have? And that's one of those things. When you're confident, you're playing well, you're going to get victories. And I think that's where Ohio State is. So Minnesota can't look past this at all. I guess you can say that throughout the entire Big Ten, but if Minnesota's sitting there saying, boy, phew, thank God we have Ohio State coming in this weekend, they have a different thought that will come on Saturday night when they don't have 6 points.
Earlier this week, we talked to Northeastern head coach Jerry Keefe. He's in his first season for the Huskies. They are 8-3. They travel to number 20 UMass Lowell. And Jerry Keefe said that playing Lowell is unique. What's unique about playing Lowell, and what do the Huskies have to face?
I think that for Lowell, I think that it's usually about puck pursuit and puck possession. And if you give away the puck to Lowell, sometimes it's often difficult to get it back. And it can be a battle. And that's one of the things. Their neutral zone defense, when they're playing well, the neutral zone is very difficult for teams to navigate. And Lowell is playing pretty well. They lost their opener to Arizona State, haven't lost a game since. They did have, a great sweep of BU and then a blemish, if you can say that, when they played Long Island University, a 3-3 tie that they, gave up the tying goal very late in regulation, and then neither team able to win it in the overtime, just went down as a tie. But, that's one that I think, Lowell is going to want to bounce back from. They'll be pretty hungry coming out against a Northeastern team that you got to be careful of overconfidence, right? You've now won 5 in a row. If you're Northeastern, you don't want that team to get a cocky little edge. And that's one of those balances as a coach. You've got to keep your team at somewhat even keel. And I think that's one of that'll be his big challenge going into Friday.
Well, Jim, as we talked off the air about the competitiveness and the battles around college hockey and how good everything is, and as we've talked to coaches over the last couple of weeks, it seems to me that what is one thing that's making college hockey so great these days is there are so many just absolutely great coaches out there.
There are, as every legendary head coach retires, you always say, oh boy, we're going to miss that guy. And then you realize that you've got somebody that goes in and replaces them and is even, does a great job and, takes programs to different levels, and that's one of those difficult things that you don't always know is who the next coach is going to be. That's going to be great. But, you've got, all the head coaches out there that are pretty good. And then so many assistants that are probably, in positions where they should someday be heading up their own program. So the next generation of coaches is is very strong, as well as what we already have, some of the legends that are still in the game, and then just, some of the good young coaches that have taken over.
Jim, it's not going to be easy for you and I and the other 8 Division I men's columnists to pick all these Friday games this week. You can make arguments either way for every one of the contests we mentioned.
You can. I mean, I can't believe that I've had success in picking these games to date. I went 5-0 last week, and I think that was the luckiest 5-0 I'll ever go, because it's getting more difficult as the season goes on. We talked about it on Monday in our weekend review that you're seeing more parity as we get into league play. League games just aren't easy to win. Even when the top team plays the bottom team, those aren't easy wins.
Well, I hope you get a chance to see some hockey this weekend, either on TV or in person. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger. We'll catch you next time.
This has been the USCHO Game of the Week podcast, a production of U.S. College Hockey Online. Visit uscho.com/podcasts to listen or subscribe.